The man who needs nothing. Why solitude after 40 terrifies society. This man makes people profoundly uncomfortable without saying a single word. He's 42, living alone, not because he failed, not because he's broken, but because somewhere along the way he stopped playing the game everyone else still desperately pretends is real. And that terrifies them. Because nothing threatens a system built on mutual dependence more than a man who genuinely needs nothing from it. You see it in their eyes when they ask the question, the one they're not supposed to ask but always do. Why aren't you married? They ask it like it's a confession they're waiting for, as if your solitude is a crime that needs immediate, comprehensive explanation. But here's the truth of what they're really asking. What do you know that I don't? Carl Jung understood this inherent threat. He stated plainly that gaining consciousness inevitably leads to isolation, because when you see the machine for what it is, a series of manufactured needs and accepted compromises, you can't unsee it. And once you can't unsee it, you cannot participate in the same way. You become dangerous, not because you are hostile, but because your very existence asks a question the collective cannot afford to answer. What if none of this is necessary? Jung's wisdom cuts to the core. The individual who wishes to have an answer to the problem of evil as it is posed today has need first and foremost of self-knowledge. That is the utmost possible knowledge of his own wholeness. The man who chooses solitude is actively doing the work of wholeness, which immediately places him outside the fragmented demands of the collective. The rigged script, marriage as a trap. Society runs on a rigid, predictable script. We are handed it early. Go to school, get the prescribed job, find the acceptable partner, start the family, consume, reproduce, retire, and die having meticulously checked every designated box. And we are told this is living. As Jung warned, the more a man lays stress on false possessions, and the less sensitivity he has for what is essential, the less satisfying is his life. He feels limited because he has limited aims. But most men follow this script not because they want to, but because the alternative is too terrifying to contemplate. The script promises a psychological safety net. If you just do what everyone else did, you won't have to face the one question that haunts the waking hours. What if I'm wasting my life? The man who lives alone after 40 has already asked that question, and he refused to accept the comfortable, collective lie as the final answer. Society confronts him with shame. You're getting old, so get married. He replies with the question of the awakened. Why do I have to get married? I haven't done anything wrong. That simple query is the voice of a man who finally realized the game is rigged, that the social contract was signed in his name without his genuine conscious consent. He refuses to be shamed into shallow compliance. The gender empathy gap and the legal reality. Nobody tells him what modern marriage has become. They sell the Disney version. Love, partnership, forever. What they meticulously fail to mention is the legal contract, the trap. The slow realization that what you thought was a romantic bond was just another mechanism of control. The system rewards betrayal. A man today looks at the current legal reality and concludes, never get into a contract with someone who knows they can get rewarded for breaking it. Marriage is sold as the ultimate lifelong bond. Yet, the legal reality is a complex business arrangement where one party can often walk away with half your life, a significant portion of your income, alimony, and custody of your children. And society will often applaud their bravery for leaving. This isn't mere cynicism, it is financial and emotional mathematics. Marriage today feels like a legal liability, not purely an emotional sanctuary. Men see the divorce laws the potential financial devastation and the custody battles stacked against them. And they are asking a very simple, logical question. Why would I willingly sign up for this catastrophic risk? The culture has no rational answer, so it does what it always does when confronted with men who refuse to comply. It shames them. And this is compounded by the hidden societal structure known as the gender empathy gap. When women are single and cannot find a partner, society universally offers compassion and support. They are seen as victims of unfortunate circumstances. When men are single and choose solitude, they are met with contempt, suspicion, and often mockery. They are seen as losers, selfish, or men who deserve their loneliness. The solitary man carries not just the projections of freedom, but the cultural contempt for any genuine display of male vulnerability. When he refuses to perform suffering, when he states, "Actually, I'm genuinely fine," they despise him even more. If he's truly happy in solitude, then everything they sacrificed for companionship might have been unnecessary. The shadow and the mirror, fear of freedom. Jung distinguished between the persona, the social mask we wear, and the true self. Most people spend their entire lives frantically maintaining a persona that satisfies external expectations, while their true self remains buried, starved, and undeveloped. Jung stated plainly, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But that personal freedom doesn't stay personal for long. When one man intentionally steps out of the standardized line, the whole system feels a massive tremor. The solitary man after 40 has courageously discovered his own way, and in doing so, he's become a living critique of everyone who never once questioned theirs. That is what truly makes him terrifying. This is where freedom tragically turns to fear. When someone encounters a man living contentedly alone after 40, they don't see him. They see a mirror. And they violently despise what they see reflected back. He must be damaged, he's selfish, he's missing out, something's fundamentally wrong with him. This is the process of shadow projection in action. Jung explained it simply. We see in others what we hate in ourselves. When people vehemently criticize the solitary man's choices, they are not commenting on his life. They are externalizing their own repressed desires, doubts, and fears. The person who calls him selfish is suppressing their own desire to prioritize their needs. He's missing out, secretly resents their own compromises. The one who asks, "Aren't you lonely?" is trying to assert superiority over his silence. Envy disguises itself as concern, but beneath these shallow masks lies a deep, churning discomfort with one's own past choices, reflected in the mirror of another's profound freedom. Jung taught, if you imagine someone who is brave enough to withdraw all his projections, then you get an individual who is conscious of a pretty thick shadow. The individuated man recognizes these projections without a hint of defensiveness. He understands that when someone attacks his chosen lifestyle, they are not seeing him at all. They are seeing their own unintegrated shadow. And shadows only threaten people who stubbornly refuse to look at them. The reclamation, psychic energy, and economic defiance. Picture a man waking up to absolute silence, zero demanding notifications, no immediate relational demands, just stillness. That stillness is not emptiness. That stillness is pure, concentrated energy. Jung introduced the concept of psychic energy, the fundamental life force driving all psychological processes, the current that fuels everything we think, feel, and create. In most people's lives, this energy hemorrhages daily, maintaining social obligations, managing complex relationships, fulfilling expectations, and constantly performing roles that have nothing to do with who you actually are. But the man who lives alone after 40 has consciously begun the great reclamation, the energetic return of his own life force. He realizes, now I can devote myself to myself for the first time. This is a man who spent decades giving his energy to everyone else, to demanding work, to the relentless performance of being enough. When the demanding noise finally stopped, he realized something profound. He had no idea who he actually was. The life force economy. Here is the economic truth nobody dares to talk about. The entire consumer economy is built on male performance. It relies on men spending money they don't have to impress women who wouldn't love them anyway. On men buying houses they can barely afford to prove they are stable. On men chasing status and titles to fulfill an external, manufactured script. As Jung powerfully warned, until you make the unconscious
fear of judgment, because they've made peace with being misunderstood. The man who lives alone after 40 threatens society, not through action, but through example. He is dangerous in the way that a free man is always dangerous to a slave society. His very existence poses the question that cannot be asked without destabilizing the entire collective structure. Is my sacrifice truly necessary? As Krishnamurti warned, it is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. The solitary man who has individuated has become maladjusted to collective sickness. He refuses to sleepwalk through life because others are too afraid to wake up. He has paid the price of loneliness and fear to purchase something invaluable, himself. He cannot be owned because he owns himself. He cannot be controlled because he controls himself. He cannot be predicted because he has stopped living according to external scripts. This is what makes him dangerous to systems built on compliance. The solitary man is following the hermit's journey: withdrawal, transformation, return. He returns to the world carrying the wholeness he discovered in the quiet. He is no longer reactive, but responsive. No longer seeking, but offering. No longer performing, but profoundly present. The final paradox. The man who lives alone serves the collective by being whole. He cannot give what he doesn't possess. By developing his self in solitude, he becomes capable of genuine relationships rather than mere codependent entanglement. Society will continue to view such men with suspicion, discomfort, or fear. This is inevitable. But perhaps some who encounter him will recognize something in his eyes, a peace that comes not from having everything, but from needing nothing. A strength that comes not from conquering others, but from mastering himself. A freedom that comes not from escaping life, but from fully inhabiting it. The question that begins everything remains: who am I when I stop performing for the world? The man who needs nothing is the man who owns everything. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung.